Hi, everybody. Today is kind of gloomy, and it's kind of fitting for this topic. We're going to do a part 2 series on how do you know if you're in a manipulative relationship, because so many people reached out to me about that particular podcast that I would like to just do a follow-up with a few more ideas or thoughts as to what you can look for in a relationship if you assume that you're in a manipulative or controlling type of relationship. And I want to say again, like I did in the other podcast, a lot of these things are things we all do, but it's when the person is doing them to an extreme or for the benefit of self only and to get things out of people or to manipulate people into certain things. And as I said before, we all manipulate to some degree at some times, but a manipulator or a controller is really doing these things consistently all the time. It's not every once in a while or when they really, really want something, but it's just in daily life constantly happening to you, and it's shifting your reality. You're sort of kind of forced or pushed into believing what they believe rather than having your own thoughts about it, just to keep the peace or to stay out of an argument or to have some happiness. So today we're going to talk about just a few of the tactics that manipulators and controllers might use in a relationship. So the first is they are always the victim. They'll often create a scenario where they are the ones that are the victim in a situation. They might play on a concern you have for their health or their well-being so that you will engage in behaviors to help them constantly or to do what they want. If you think that they are fragile, then you will pay more attention to them. You'll let them have their way more often. You will do all these things so that they don't feel threatened. You'll become submissive in some way. You won't fight as much for things that you want in the relationship because you have been told that your partner or this other person in your relationship is fragile in some way, and you don't want to threaten them, you don't want to hurt them, and you feel protective of them. You may even feel guilty that you aren't there to help them at every step of the way. So you become just kind of this person who's always helping them, who's always worried about how they feel. You're always trying to make it better for them. You're always working on those things, which are all beautiful ways of being. And it's not that you shouldn't be those things or do those things for others, because it's really a beautiful way of being. But the manipulator is playing a victim, and it's not a two-way street there so much. They might throw you a bone now and again about caring for you or something like that, but oftentimes it's all about them and keeping them in this place where they're happy. And I can certainly say that was something for me in the manipulative relationship I was in. I just ended up doing everything to keep the peace, everything for that person. That person had just gone through so much and had so much trauma in their lives and had all these health and well-being concerns that I needed to walk on eggshells and make sure everything was perfect and beautiful for them at all times. And I really fell into that, and it was at the detriment of those same things coming back to me. I just became this workhorse that was just doing everything for that particular person. Another thing they'll do, which is the opposite of this victim kind of role, is to be a bully. And this is a common thing everyone thinks about in relationships when they think about manipulators or controllers, that they're a bully. Not often, not always the case. Sometimes they're a victim, but they could be a bully, which is the opposite. And a bully will use fear, aggression, and things like that to control you and manipulate you. And I'll definitely say in the relationship I'm talking about in this video, both those things occurred. The person was a victim, so I walked on eggshells, but yet they were also very physically and mentally bullying all the time. I had so much fear around keeping the peace, because if I did something the person didn't like, they would become aggressive. I was really crippled by that fear. Even after I got out of the relationship, I was crippled for such a long time with just the fear that they instilled in general. And they can also instill fear in like they're going to lose you. They might say things like, well, I'm just going to leave this relationship. I don't really care about you. And some of the things I talked about in the last podcast, how they make you feel ugly or not worthy of anybody else, but they could leave you at any time or cheat on you at any time, but you're just, garbage. So you can't do the same or get out and have a good relationship somewhere else. This is all you're worthy of. And that's very, very common for people who are in manipulative relationships. Again, your reality gets so skewed because the manipulator, the controller will kind of isolate you out. And so the only commentary that you're hearing about how the world is through this person who's manipulative or controlling. And over time, your reality just becomes that and keeping that person happy. And you believe all the things they say about other people. They're very, they use judgment to get you to not be part of your family anymore, or to not be friends with certain people. And they use this kind of judgment on everything about you. They judge you, they judge your looks, they judge what you say, they judge what you do, they judge your friends, they judge your family, they judge everyone. And that kind of creates this reality bubble that isn't your reality. It's them kind of creating this reality for you. And it sneaks up on you. If this happening to you, don't feel bad or that you're not smart or anything like that, because that's not true at all. They're so good at it. Before you know it, that's where you are. And that certainly happened to me. And it took me a long time, like 10 years to figure that out. So you're not alone in that situation if that's happening to you. Another thing that they'll do is they'll fake concern for your well-being. And they do this to find out what your fears are, your insecurities are, your self-doubts are, your negative self-beliefs are. All these things, they fake concern for your well-being so they can find out these intimate things about you that then they will use against you. They'll take them as tools to use against you to press personal triggers you might have, to control you in some subtle way while they're pretending to care about who you are. Like it might be something, for example, of, well, maybe you just need to distance yourself from your sister because she is hurting your feelings too much and she's saying all these things to you that aren't making you happy. Maybe the sister is saying, hey, this relationship is a problem. You need to really look at this hard. This person is controlling you. And when you bring it up to the person who's controlling you, they then flip it and use your self-doubts against you in order to get you to distance yourself from your sister. So they're acting like they're really concerned that your sister is hurting you and really stretching your emotional abilities. And so you just need to distance yourself from her. And that's not necessarily what's happening at all. They're just using your self-doubts and your fears and your insecurities and your negative self-beliefs to get you to do something that they want you to do, or to keep you thinking you're less than what you are so that they don't have to worry about you leaving the relationship. Another thing they can do, which is part of the bullying process in a lot of ways, is using like high pressure tactics to get you to do something. Then they can demand like immediately you need to have a response, or immediately you need to do something about this. They'll use, as I said, your insecurities, your fears, and even things you don't like about yourself against you in this high pressure situation. They will even do things like make you feel embarrassed or not worthy or shame or guilt about something in order to get you to do something else. And they're really skilled at this, so you don't even recognize it when it's happening. Embarrassment, shame, and guilt can really stop you from your own beliefs. They're like the second you feel those things, embarrassment, shame, and guilt, they're like roadblocks, and they stop you from going to a place where you can rationally imagine or think about what is being said and if there's truth in it or not truth in it, if you're being manipulated or controlled. That can really work well for the manipulator or the controller because they've stopped you rationally thinking about what they're saying. And now your brain has shifted over to embarrassment or shame or guilt. And manipulators over time, they're really trying to wear down your self-esteem, your self-worth. They're instilling this worthlessness, self-worthlessness, and shame and guilt and continual embarrassment about who you are I mean, I was so in that place of I am worthless. I had a lot of shame and guilt about everything that happened on both sides of the coin once I escaped, on everything that happened in the relationship and the way I treated people because of manipulation in the relationship, the relationships I lost because of the manipulation, and then also all the things that were instilled in me during the relationship, that I was ugly, that I didn't have any worth, that I was stupid, that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't worthy of anything good, that I was too old, that I was used goods, that nobody would want me because I'm just a flake and a loser. And so when you get out of these relationships, you don't know who you are, what you like, where you want to go, who is safe and who is not. You really have to navigate all those things for yourself. And I'll do another podcast on that, of what it's like when you get out of a relationship and how to find yourself again. It's a long process. It's hard. It's really hard work, but it's worth it because you're worth it. And regardless of whatever these manipulators and controllers are doing or saying to you, it's not true. The best thing that you can do here is, when you feel that red flag go off, best thing you can do obviously is either get out of that relationship, or if that's a person who you can't actually end a relationship with, like it's a family member or something like that, then, as I said in that last podcast, have really clear boundaries about how you're going to interact with that person. Don't pick up what they're trying to do to you. Learn to recognize, okay, here this person is playing the victim. I'm not going to play into that scenario. But also, if you're wondering, am I in this kind of relationship? Analyze it. Spend some time. Maybe you have to do it away from the person so they don't know. Maybe it's writing in a journal, or talking with someone else, or talking to the wind about it. Write down what's happening that you're worried about. And is it unusual? Is it strange? Are they playing the victim? Are they bullying me? Are they trying to control me with pressure tactics? Are they faking concern for my well-being and then using my deepest thoughts and secrets against me? And again, people do this every once in a while who aren't manipulators or controllers. It's just part of being human. What usually happens is these folks are dealing with a lot of trauma and issues themselves, and they've decided to just mask it by being someone who someone is afraid of, or who always gets their way because maybe they feel they never got their way when they were a kid, and they're looking for how to get that. And they've learned how to be in relationships. Usually controllers and manipulators have learned this behavior from someone else. It's been passed on to them. So they think that that is the normal way of being, but they don't really understand that that is not a healthy way of being, and not everyone is interacting in that way. It's a survival kind of mechanism. So they're dealing with their own things. I do believe that someone who approaches relationships like this can learn to not be a manipulator or a controller. It does take a lot of work, and it takes really looking at your life, overcoming whatever led you down that road to begin with. But if you're in a relationship with that person, that's not your work. That's their work, and you can't get them to go there unless they want to go there. So staying in a relationship trying to help somebody be healthy in this way, and they're not wanting the same thing, isn't the answer to keeping the relationship. You can't make someone work on themselves. And you have to be really careful, because they might recognize this as, oh, here's a weakness, and so I'm going to pretend that I'm doing this, but really I'm just placating the person so I can keep them in the relationship a little bit longer, or whatever their goal is. To recap, they like to play the victim, be so sorry for me. They like being a bully. They like using judgment to control you and to get you to not like things or to feel lesser about yourself. They're really into breaking down your own self-esteem and self-worth and replacing all of that with them, so that you're dependent on them because you can't do it on your own, and you're not worthy of your own thoughts or ideas or happiness or joy or love. They fake concern a lot of the times for your well-being so they can get in on the inside and find out your deep secrets and use them against you. And they might pressure or push you using all kinds of tactics. They really like fear. Aggression is a big thing. People hate anger and fear. We'll do anything to avoid somebody being angry. And they know that, and they'll use that in the relationship to get what they want. So those are the things Some of the things to look for if you're feeling like you might be in a manipulative or controlling relationship. And please look at the other podcast, which I will link in the description and at the end of this video, if you're wondering about some ways that you can work within yourself to understand if you're in a manipulative relationship or a controlling relationship or not, and how to figure out those questions, the answers to those questions. And a lot of that really involves getting some time where you can get out of that relationship just with yourself and either meditating on what's happening or thinking about what's happening or talking about what's happening or writing about what's happening, trying to stay in your own reality about what you feel about what happened, a particularly bad argument or doing something that you were pushed or coerced into doing, but now you feel that you don't feel good about what you did. I hope that gave you some insight if you're really wondering. And if you're really wondering about it, you can also call helplines for people in crisis or for people who might be in abusive relationships. And I will also put those numbers for the United States in the description of this podcast. So take good care, my friends. Get help if you need it. There's lots of help out there. You're not alone. There are a lot of people who want to help you, probably people who this particular person doesn't like at all, who are ready to help you. There's hotlines, there's places that survivors and victims can go. There's therapists, there's all different types of modalities that can help you. There's spiritual practice. There's all types of things. It's really endless. The power to find help is really hard sometimes when you feel overwhelmed and beaten down, but the help is out there waiting for you. So know that it's there. Know that you could tap into it at any time. And know that I love you and I care about you. And I'll see you in the next one. And please stay safe.